All right, so as I've said before, we're going to have a section dedicated to CSS, CSS3, but I do want to get into just a little bit of basic styling, just so you know how to do things like add a background color or a border or align something, float it, just very simple things like that. So let's go ahead and go into our body here, and I'm going to create a div with an ID of container. All right, now divs are usually used for to add an ID or a class to something. Now, the main difference between an ID and a class is usually an ID is something that you'll only use once. Okay, so a container usually will wrap everything in our site or our application inside of a container, so there's only one instance of it. Now, if it's something like, let's say we have a class called red text where we might want to use multiple times in our website or application, that's something you would want to use a class for. Okay, so that's the main difference, at least in my experience, with using IDs and classes. So in this container, let's go ahead and put in an H1. We'll just say welcome. And then we'll put a paragraph, and I'm just going to grab some sample text real quick. Okay, so this site, lorem ipsum or lipsum.com, this we can just generate some dummy text, which can be really helpful. So copy that, paste it in, and then end the paragraph. Okay, so if we were to look at this, you can see we just have a heading and a paragraph. So what I want to do is just add some basic styling. So we're going to go in the head. Make sure you're in the head, and then we're going to open up some style tags. Alright, and when you're using CSS, there's two ways to do it. You can do it inline like we're doing here, just putting it right in the head, or you can link to another file, an external CSS file, which we'll get into in a little bit. So I'm just doing this for simplicity. So let's say we want to style the body. Okay, remember we have a body tag. So we can say body, open up some curly braces, and we'll say background, and we can make it red. Okay, save that, reload, and we have a very gross looking red background. Alright, so you can use just color names like this. You can also use hexadecimal values. Alright, so for instance, black in hexadecimal is going to be the number sign and then 3 zeros. Okay, if we reload that, you can see it turned black. The text is also black, so it's not showing up. Now white would be 6 Fs. Okay, that makes it white. But what I'm going to do is make it just a light gray, which is going to be F4 3 times. Okay, so that made it a little gray. Alright, so let's also change the font. So we can say font family, and let's change it to Arial. And we also want to change the line height, which is the spacing between lines. Okay, so we can say line height, let's do 1.5 EM or M. Alright, so you can see it changed the font and the line height. Now let's say this container we want to add a border to. Now since it's an ID, we want to use the number sign and then container. Alright, now if it was a class, this would be a dot. Okay, so dot represents class, number sign represents ID. Alright, so let's say border, and this is going to have 3 values. It's going to have a width, so we'll say 1 pixel. It's going to have a color. I'm going to say 6 Cs, which is a gray, and then also the style, which I'm going to make solid. Okay, we'll save that, reload, and you can see now we have a border around that content. Now you can see that the text here is meshed right up against the border here, okay, with both the heading and the paragraph, and I don't want that. So to fix that, we can add some padding. Alright, now the reason it's not up against the top and bottom is because by default, headings and paragraphs have padding on the top and bottom. Okay, so that's why it's not like that by default. So if I were to say padding 0 and save, reload, that's not going to make any difference because the padding is on the heading and the paragraph. Alright, so if I was to target the paragraph, we could say container P, and then set padding to 0. I'm sorry, it's margin, not padding. Save that, reload. Now you can see that the paragraph doesn't have that spacing anymore. Okay, but I'm going to get rid of that. I just wanted to show you we could do that. But what I want to do is just add padding to the left and the right of this container. If I wanted to do just the left and the right, we could do either this. We could do padding left, 10 pixels, and then padding right, 10 pixels. Okay, if I go ahead and save that, now you can see we're not up against the sides anymore. If I don't want to use two different styles like this, we could say padding, and then we'll have 4 values. First will be top. So if we say 0 for the top, next will be right, so 10 pixels. Next will be bottom, so 0. Next would be left, which would be 10 pixels. And then we can get rid of that. And that should give us the same exact thing. Now margin, on the other hand, is going to be the outside spacing, so outside of the element. So let's say we want some spacing up at the top here. We could say margin top, let's say 30 pixels, and save. If we reload, you can see that it's now moved down. Alright, we can also set the width. We'll say width 800 pixels. Reload, and you can see now it's only 800 pixels. Now a lot of the times you're going to want to center your container. So to do that, we can actually set margin to auto. Okay, so if I save that and reload, you can see that it now moves in the middle. Now the margin top is gone because here we're saying we want everything auto. But what I would want to do to keep that margin is set, we could say set 30 pixels auto. So what this means is 30 pixels on the top and bottom, and then auto on the left and right. So we can then get rid of that, reload, and now you can see we have our margin on the top and the bottom, and then auto on the left and right. Alright, so let's say we want to have a class. So we'll just take this text, and I'm going to put this in a span, since span is inline, meaning that it's not going to put it on the next line. And then we'll add a class, and we'll say, let's do EMP for emphasis. Okay, and then we'll just go like that. And then up here we want to say dot EMP for our class. I'm going to change the color to red, and let's change the font weight to bold. Save it, reload, and now you can see we get that red bold text. And we can then use that class anywhere. So if we want to put it here, save that, and now you can see we have it there as well. Another thing we can do is float elements. So let's say in our container, let's put another div around this, and we'll just call this div side A, and we'll end it here. Okay, and then let's grab this, copy it, and then this one will be side B, and we'll just change welcome to hello, and then just get rid of some of this text. Alright, so if we save that and reload, we just have this is side A, this is side B, but let's say we want them to be side by side. So what we can do is go up here and say dot side A, and we'll do float. We want it to float to the left, and then let's set the width to let's say 50%. Okay, if we save that and reload, you can see it's now floated to the left. Now this border isn't going around this whole thing. and that's because it's floated. So what we can do is to the container where we have the border, we're going to set overflow to hidden. Okay, save that, reload. Now you can see it goes around both elements. Alright, so I don't want to get too far into CSS because we do have a section dedicated to it, but this is just some very basic styling. In the next video we're going to have a little project and we're going to build a simple HTML template using the things that we've learned so far in this section.